Welcome back, Rare Coin Insider. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating and mysterious coins in numismatic history, the 1967 1-cent coin. Now, at first glance, it looks like just another ordinary penny, right? A small copper-colored coin that most people might overlook or toss into a jar without thinking twice. But what if I told you that this tiny piece of metal, weighing just a few grams, could actually be worth an unimaginable fortune? Yes, you heard that right. Some versions of this coin are valued at over $187 million in today's collector market. It sounds insane, almost impossible, but when you dig into the story, the history, the minting details, and the design mysteries behind this 1967 penny, it all begins to make sense. Let's start at the beginning. The year was 1967, a time of great change in America and across the world. The Vietnam War was raging, cultural revolutions were reshaping society, and even in the world of currency, things were shifting. The United States Mint was under immense pressure to meet coin demand due to a nationwide coin shortage that had begun in the early 1960s. People were hoarding silver coins, so the Mint had to increase production of copper-based coins like the penny to keep commerce moving. That's why in 1967, the Mint produced millions of 1-cent coins. But within that enormous production run, something unusual happened. The 1967 1-cent coin, also known as the Lincoln Memorial Cent, carries the portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse side, the front of the coin, just as it had since 1909. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the coin shows a detailed bust of Lincoln facing right, with the word Liberty to his left, the date 1967 to his right, and the national motto, "In God We Trust," arching above his head. The design itself wasn't new, but the circumstances surrounding its minting in 1967 made it very unique. For instance, during this year, there were no mint marks on any U.S. coins, a rare situation in coin history. The U.S. Mint had temporarily suspended mint marks between 1965 and 1967 to discourage coin hoarding by collectors. So, even though coins were made in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, none of them bore the typical DS or P marks. That decision alone makes the 1967 penny stand out. Now, let's talk about the weight and composition of the coin. The standard 1967 Lincoln Cent was made primarily of copper, about 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing approximately 3.11 grams. It has a diameter of 19 millimeters and a smooth edge, with a warm reddish-brown color when new that darkens over time. But here's where things start to get interesting. Not every coin struck in 1967 followed this exact formula. Due to high demand, experimental planchets, misstrikes, and test runs, a few coins came out with variations, different compositions, different strike pressures, even different weights. And that's what drives collectors crazy today. Imagine this. You're sorting through an old jar of coins, maybe coins your grandparents saved decades ago. You spot a penny that looks slightly off. Maybe the color is a bit different. Maybe it feels a touch lighter or heavier than normal, or maybe there's something odd about the rim. You decide to check it out, and boom, it turns out to be one of those ultra-rare 1967 era coins, the kind that collectors have been hunting for decades. That's the kind of story that turns an ordinary person into an overnight millionaire. Now, you might be wondering, what kind of errors could make a penny worth millions? Well, in the world of coin collecting, errors are gold. There are broad strike errors, double dies, off-center strikes, die caps, wrong planchets, and even transitional metal errors. Some of the most valuable 1967 1-cent coins were struck on different metal planchets. For example, struck accidentally on silver or aluminum instead of copper. Others had doubling in the inscriptions, like, "In God We Trust," or the date, 1967. Some of these era coins are so rare that only one or two are known to exist, and collectors at major auctions have paid jaw-dropping amounts for them. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Before we talk about the mind-blowing auction values, we need to understand the design and symbolism behind the 1967 penny, because every detail on that small coin carries history and intention. On the obverse, as I mentioned, you have Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, the man who preserved the Union during the Civil War and ended slavery. His face has appeared on the penny since 1909, which was actually the centennial of his birth. Victor David Brenner's design was chosen for its realism and dignity, and it became one of the most enduring portraits in American coinage. The word, liberty, represents the nation's founding principle, while "In God We Trust" was first used on U.S. coins during the Civil War and became a symbol of faith and national unity. Now, flip the coin over and you'll see the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial, a structure that was dedicated in 1922 and serves as one of America's most iconic monuments. This design was introduced in 1959, replacing the earlier wheat ears design, and it was created by Frank Gasparo. The Lincoln Memorial image on the reverse is incredibly detailed. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, right in the center between the columns. Above it, the words, "United States of America," curve gracefully along the top edge, and just below that, the national motto, "E pluribus unum," meaning, "Out of many, one," symbolizes unity among diversity. At the bottom, the denomination, 1 cent, is displayed in bold letters, completing the design that millions of Americans have held in their hands over the years. So, what makes the 1967 penny so special compared to others from the same era? One major reason is that 1967 marked the final year of the coinage reform period, when mint marks were removed and silver content was disappearing from U.S. coins. It was a transitional year in the world of American coinage, and transitional years are prime hunting grounds for rare varieties and minting mistakes. For example, because the mint was operating at maximum capacity to meet demand, dies were overused, sometimes damaged, and occasionally misaligned. That led to striking anomalies that collectors later discovered. Another fascinating aspect is how 1967 pennies age and tone. Many of them developed beautiful rainbow-like patinas due to the high copper content. These natural colorations can range from deep red to violet to blue-green, depending on the storage conditions. In the collector market, especially for uncirculated or proof-like specimens, toning can dramatically influence value. Some toned examples have sold for tens of thousands simply because of their unique color patterns. Speaking of proof-like coins, the mint also issued special mint sets in 1967 instead of traditional proof sets. These were struck with extra care and had a higher quality finish than regular circulation coins. The 1967 Special Mint Set penny is one of the most sought-after coins among collectors today, especially in pristine condition with a mirror-like surface. Now, here's where things get even more unbelievable. A few years ago, a 1967 1-cent coin reportedly sold at auction for an astronomical sum, over $187 million. That sounds unbelievable, and many people still debate whether that sale was legitimate or exaggerated by private collectors' rumors. But what's undeniable is that rare varieties of this coin have reached extraordinary valuations. In particular, examples with confirmed minting errors, perfect grades from certification authorities like PCGS or NGC, or coins struck on experimental planchets have broken all expectations. The world of coin collecting thrives on rarity and story. And the 1967 penny is both. Each coin carries not just the face of Lincoln, but also the story of an era of change, innovation, and mistakes that created treasures. Every time a collector finds a new variety, a missing detail, or a metal composition difference, it rewrites the history books a little more. You see, when we talk about the value of a coin, it's not just about the metal it's made from or its face value. It's about scarcity, demand, and history combined. If only a few examples exist, collectors will pay almost any price to own one. The thrill of owning something that no one else has, that's what drives the market. And the 1967 penny fits perfectly into that narrative. Even today, people all around the world are searching their pocket change, old coin rolls, and family jars hoping to find one of these treasures. The idea that a coin worth 1 cent could turn into a life-changing fortune is just too exciting to ignore. It's like a modern-day treasure hunt, hidden in plain sight. And remember, every single coin tells a story. The 1967 1-cent coin tells a story of America in motion, an economy evolving, a mint system adapting, and a symbol of freedom and unity preserved on copper. The man on the coin, Abraham Lincoln, once said, "Whatever you are, be a good one." And somehow, even a 1-cent coin from 1967 lived up to that. It became not just a good coin, but a legendary one. Now let's dive even deeper, because the story of the 1967 1-cent coin isn't just about design and history. It's about the mysteries that live inside every strike of metal. When collectors talk about hidden treasure, they often speak of gold coins or silver dollars, but in truth, some of the most valuable pieces ever found are simple copper cents, especially when they carry the right combination of rarity, mint error, and pristine condition. And in the world of rare coins, condition is everything. Grading is like the DNA of a coin's value. A 1967 penny in average circulated condition might be worth only a few cents, but that same coin, untouched, uncirculated, and shining the way it did the moment it left the mint presses, could jump into the hundreds or thousands. Professional grading services like the Professional Coin Grading Service, better known as PCGS, and the Numismatic Guarantee Company, or NGC, analyze every tiny detail under magnification. They look for scratches, marks, strike quality, luster, and color. Coins are graded on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, and a perfect 70 means flawless, museum quality. If a 1967 1-cent coin ever achieves that perfect grade, the bidding war among collectors begins almost instantly. But grading isn't the only thing that creates fortune. Mint errors and varieties are the real magic. Think of the mint as a massive factory, millions of coins being produced every day at incredible speed. Even with the best quality control, mistakes happen. Sometimes a die gets doubled, sometimes a planchet, that's the blank metal disc used to strike a coin, gets mixed up from another denomination, and sometimes the alignment is off by just a fraction of a millimeter. When that happens, the result is a coin that looks just slightly odd, but to collectors, that oddity can be priceless. One of the most talked about 1967 pennies is a double die verse, where Lincoln's profile and the inscriptions appear doubled under magnification. You can see ghost-like outlines around "In God We Trust, Liberty," or even the date, 1967. These doubled images occur when the die shifts during the striking process, and they are among the most desirable minting errors in numismatic history. Depending on the clarity and position of the doubling, such a coin could easily reach values in the tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Then there's the off-center strike, a mistake where the coin is not properly centered during striking, leaving part of the design missing and a blank crescent of metal visible. The more dramatic the off-center appearance, the rarer and more valuable the coin becomes. Some collectors love 5% off-center examples. Others go wild for 50% off-center pieces that still show the date and design clearly. Another mysterious group of 1967 pennies are those struck on foreign or experimental planchets. Because the U.S. Mint produced coins for other countries during this period, Blank planchets for foreign denominations sometimes got mixed into U.S. production lines. That means a few 1967 Lincoln cents might have been struck on thinner or thicker metals, slightly different weights, or even compositions with trace elements of nickel or aluminum. Those coins don't just have rarity, they have an entirely different identity, a cross-minted soul that links two nations through a single piece of copper. Collectors also talk about the 1967 1-cent, wrong planchet, error, a penny struck on a dime planchet. These are smaller, lighter, and the design is slightly cut off at the edges because the planchet was never meant for that size die. Imagine finding one of those in your change. It would look strange enough to make you pause, and that small hesitation could change your life forever. Now let's travel into the world of auctions, where fortunes are made. Picture a large convention hall filled with anxious collectors, the air buzzing with whispers and excitement. On the auction stage sits a tiny copper coin in a protective holder under a bright spotlight. The auctioneer raises his voice. "We'll start the bidding at $100,000. Within seconds, paddles go up, numbers climb, and before you can blink, the hammer falls at 200,000, 500,000, 1 million, 10 million. That's the power of rarity, history, and obsession combined. Some claim that the highest recorded private sale involving a 1967 1-cent coin reached beyond $187 million, though the details remain shrouded in mystery and private agreements. Whether that figure is exact or symbolic, it reminds everyone that in the world of collectibles, perception of value can be just as powerful as value itself. Every coin collector dreams of the ultimate discovery, the moment when you realize that something ordinary in your hand is actually extraordinary. People have found treasures in old jars, estate boxes, and even on the floor of parking lots. There are stories of families cashing in jars of pennies at banks only to discover that one coin in the pile was worth more than their car, their house, even their lifetime savings. The 1967 penny, because of its lack of mint mark and its place in that transitional era, continues to be one of those dream targets. Let's not forget the chemistry of copper itself. The metal reacts over decades, developing a patina that can tell its own story. Some coins oxidize evenly into a chocolate brown color, while others develop iridescent patterns that shimmer with green, violet, and orange hues. Collectors call this toning, and a perfectly toned 1967 cent can mesmerize a buyer. The color gradients created by time and environment make each piece unique, like fingerprints of history frozen in metal. A naturally toned coin in perfect condition can triple or quadruple its value because it's a visual masterpiece, a tiny canvas painted by nature and time. Now think about how these coins travel. A penny minted in Philadelphia in 1967 might have passed through hundreds of hands, maybe a gas station attendant, a soldier mailing a letter home, a kid buying candy, a businessman paying for parking. Each hand adds a micro scratch. Each environment adds a layer of oxidation. But some coins never circulated. They were sealed away, saved by someone who simply liked collecting. Those untouched survivors are the ones we chase today, because they preserve the past exactly as it was. There's also something poetic about the coin's symbolism. Lincoln's face on the obverse reminds people of leadership, unity, and moral courage, while the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial, reminds people of the legacy built after his death. Together they form a story of sacrifice and endurance, and that story still resonates in every collector's heart. Maybe that's why the penny continues to be beloved even when inflation has made its purchasing power almost zero. It's no longer about money. It's about memory. In the modern era, technology has made the hunt easier, but also more competitive. Digital microscopes, high-resolution cameras, and online databases allow collectors to examine every scratch and die marker. Forums and social media groups buzz with photos of newly discovered varieties, and every week someone posts a question like, Could this be the next $1 million 1967 penny? Sometimes it's just a lighting illusion, but sometimes it's the real thing, and the community rallies around it.so. How can someone identify a potentially valuable 1967 penny? First, check the color and condition. If it still has its original red or red-brown luster, that's a good sign. Second, examine the details under magnification. Look for doubling in the letters or date, unusual thickness in the rim, or off-center strikes. Third, weigh it carefully. The standard should be around 3.11 grams. If it's significantly different, it might be struck on the wrong planchet. And finally, if you suspect something rare, never clean it, never polish it. Just store it safely and contact a professional grading service. Many valuable coins have lost thousands of dollars in potential value because someone tried to make them shine. Original surfaces are sacred in numismatics. The fascinating thing about the 1967 penny market is that it continues to evolve. Prices rise and fall based on collector interest, new discoveries, and media attention. When news breaks of a huge auction sale, millions of people rush to check their change. It's like a wave of hope sweeping across the world, all triggered by a single cent. That excitement keeps the market alive, keeps collectors motivated, and keeps the legend of the 1967 penny growing. Even museums have begun to take notice. Some institutions have displayed 1967 special mint set specimens as examples of transitional minting techniques, while others highlight the social history surrounding the coin, the economic climate of the 1960s, the mint mark suspension, and the way these little pieces of metal captured a moment in national change. If we think beyond the United States, other nations have their own rare coins from 1967, but none carry the same mythic aura as this one sent. Perhaps it's because the penny itself represents humility, the lowest denomination, the simplest coin, transforming into a symbol of impossible value. It's the perfect metaphor, something small becoming something legendary, just as Abraham Lincoln rose from humble beginnings to change the world. Every time you hold a 1967 penny, you're holding a piece of that story. Maybe it's just a coin, maybe it's a treasure, but either way, it connects you to millions of people who once used it, saved it, or searched for it. Somewhere out there, maybe in an old shoebox, a dusty drawer, or a forgotten piggy bank, another rare specimen waits to be found. And maybe, just maybe, it's the one that will rewrite the record books once again. When we talk about the 1967 1-cent coin today, we're not just talking about metal and numbers. We're talking about a phenomenon, a story that transcends time, money, and logic. Because somewhere in that simple copper piece lies a mystery that continues to baffle experts, excite collectors, and inspire treasure hunters around the world. How can something with a face value of 1 cent be worth millions, even hundreds of millions of dollars? To understand that, we need to explore the forces that shape the value of rare coins: rarity, condition, demand, and mythology, the four pillars that turn ordinary currency into living legends. Let's start with rarity. In 1967, the U.S. Mint produced over 3 billion 1-cent coins, a massive number. But out of those billions, only a microscopic fraction stand out due to their unique characteristics. These are the coins that either escaped mint inspection because of subtle striking errors, or were part of experimental production runs, or somehow survived decades without even a fingerprint. Finding one of these is like winning the lottery twice in a row. That's the first pillar, rarity. The second pillar is condition. The vast majority of those billions of coins have been through pockets, drawers, vending machines, dirt, and time. Their surfaces are scratched, dull, and worn down by life itself. But the few that remained untouched, crisp, glowing, perfect in luster and sharpness, those are the holy grails. Collectors call them mint state coins, and the grading scale measures them meticulously. A mint state 67 coin might fetch thousands. A mint state 68 could reach tens of thousands. And a mint state 69 or 70 could skyrocket into 6 or 7 figures. Every micro scratch, every speck of dust, every trace of contact counts. And when you're talking about perfection, even 1 in a billion becomes priceless. Then comes the third pillar, demand. A coin's worth is never static. It's built on desire. When collectors, investors, and museums want a piece of history, they bid higher and higher, creating waves of excitement. Social media, YouTube videos, and news articles amplify this interest. Someone somewhere finds an unusual 1967 penny, posts about it, and suddenly millions of people check their own coins. That viral curiosity feeds demand, and demand feeds value. But the fourth pillar, mythology, is where things truly get surreal. Some coins, over time, develop legends, whispered stories of lost prototypes, experimental strikes, and secret hoards. The 1967 1-cent coin is one of those legends. Stories circulate about a handful of experimental aluminum strikes made to test lighter metals for future coinage. Others talk about off-metal strikes accidentally created when leftover planchets from earlier years got mixed in. There are tales of a mint worker who pocketed a test coin out of curiosity, never realizing it would become one of the rarest pieces in the world. Each of these stories adds mystery, and mystery adds value. Now, about that staggering $187 million figure. It sounds impossible, right? How could anyone pay that much for a coin? But the truth is, high-end collectors don't just buy metal. They buy history, prestige, and immortality. For them, owning the rarest coin is like owning a piece of time itself. In private markets, where wealthy investors compete for unique artifacts, prices go beyond logic. We've seen similar cases. The 1933 Double Eagle sold for over $18 million. The 1794 Flowing Hair Silver Dollar went for more than $10 million. And yet none of them had the cultural reach of the humble penny. So when whispers of a 1967 cent fetching $187 million circulated, the numismatic world erupted. Some experts believe it was a private trade involving a prototype or experimental strike. Others think it was a symbolic sale used to mark ownership of a historically unique specimen. Whatever the truth, the legend remains, and that legend fuels dreams. Let's talk about authentication now, because in the world of rare coins, where values stretch into millions, authenticity is everything. Professional graders and authenticators use a combination of magnification, metal analysis, and die marker identification to determine if a coin is genuine. Every die, the engraved metal tool that strikes the design into the coin, leaves microscopic markers, tiny nicks, cracks, or polished lines unique to that die. By comparing these to known die varieties, experts can verify whether a coin is an authentic 1967 issue and whether it bears a rare error. Then comes metal analysis. Since most 1967 pennies were 95% copper and 5% zinc, any deviation from that composition is a red flag or a treasure signal. If a coin weighs less than 3 grams, it might be struck on an aluminum or foreign planchet. If it's heavier, it could contain traces of bronze or nickel from experimental mixtures. Advanced spectrometry equipment can reveal these secrets without damaging the coin, and that's how some of the most valuable discoveries were confirmed. For anyone hoping to find one of these treasures, the path begins with careful observation. Start by gathering all your older coins, anything from the 1960s and before. Get a simple digital scale that measures in grams, and a good magnifying glass or microscope. Examine each penny for doubling, off-center strikes, or color variations. If a coin looks suspiciously different, a slightly silvery tone, a missing detail, or a weird rim, set it aside. Never clean it, never rub it, and never use chemicals. Cleaning can destroy the coin's surface, removing microscopic details that experts rely on for authentication. Just keep it dry, safe, and in a protective holder. Once you believe you have something special, the next step is to send it for grading. Companies like PCGS, NGC, and Annex accept submissions from collectors worldwide. They will grade, certify, and encapsulate your coin in a tamper-proof holder, complete with a barcode and serial number. This certification not only proves authenticity, but also makes your coin ready for auction. Speaking of auctions, that's where the real magic happens. Imagine walking into a global auction house like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers, carrying a small envelope containing a single penny. The coin is placed under bright lights, displayed to collectors from around the world. Bidders register online, over the phone, and in person. The tension builds as the bidding begins. A few $100s quickly become a few thousand. Then a collector from Europe joins the battle, another from Japan, then a private museum from the Middle East. The numbers climb higher: 50,000, 100,000, 250,000, 500,000. The auctioneer's hammer finally comes down, and the crowd erupts in applause. That's the moment your one-cent coin becomes a life-changing fortune. The beauty of the 1967 penny market is that it's not just for millionaires. Anyone, anywhere, could own one without realizing it. Every day, coins are found in drawers, jars, boxes, and wallets that turn out to be worth unimaginable amounts. And that possibility keeps the dream alive. The penny that no one noticed could be the very one that changes everything. The 1967 one-cent coin also represents a fascinating time capsule. Think about what the world was like then. 1967 was the year of the Apollo missions, the year the Beatles released Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the year color television became mainstream, the year the world was changing faster than ever. Holding a coin from that era is like touching the heartbeat of the 1960s. Every cent minted that year is a physical link to that time. Some collectors even view the 1967 penny as a symbol of perseverance. It survived decades of circulation, inflation, and neglect, yet here it is today, commanding headlines and inspiring millions to look closer at what they once ignored. It's a reminder that value isn't always visible. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. The coin's connection to Abraham Lincoln adds another layer of depth. Lincoln, a man born in poverty, who rose to lead a nation and change history, now immortalized on a coin that itself represents the transformation from humble to priceless. That symbolism resonates deeply with collectors and historians alike. Every year, new discoveries surface. Someone finds a 1967 penny with a striking anomaly, sends it for grading, and a new variety gets added to the official record. Some of these discoveries rewrite the books. A small difference in die design, a new doubling, a new composition, and suddenly the value of similar coins skyrockets. The numismatic community thrives on these surprises. Forums light up, videos are made, and the hunt begins anew. Behind all of this is human curiosity, that unending desire to search, to find, to uncover something hidden. The 1967 penny is not just a collectible. It's a riddle that has lasted over half a century. Every person who picks one up becomes part of that riddle, part of a story still being written. So, when we talk about a coin worth $187 million, we're really talking about passion. Passion that drives people to study die varieties, to scan through rolls of coins for hours, to dream that one day they might hold something rare. It's that passion that fuels the entire world of collecting, a mix of history, luck, and obsession that never fades. And maybe that's the true value of the 1967 penny, not just the money it can bring, but the inspiration it gives. It teaches us to look closer, to appreciate the small things, to remember that greatness often hides behind simplicity. The next time you hold a penny, take a second to really look at it. Feel the weight, study the design, imagine the countless hands it's passed through, and remember that inside that small circle of copper lies more history, more art, and more mystery than anyone could imagine. Because who knows? The next fortune might already be sitting quietly in your pocket. Now, as we move deeper into the heart of the 1967 1-cent story, let's take a step behind the mint doors themselves, back into that roaring, metallic world of presses, heat, and precision. Picture the United States Mint in 1967, a thunderous symphony of steel and fire. Huge mechanical presses are striking thousands of coins every minute, rhythmic clanks echoing through long factory halls, sparks flashing as copper planchets slide into position. Workers in protective gear inspect trays of newly struck cents, each one carrying the face of Abraham Lincoln fresh and gleaming. The smell of metal and oil fills the air. This was not just production, it was history being created in real time. But that year, something different was happening inside the mint. The United States was in the middle of a coinage revolution. The Coinage Act of 1965 had changed everything. Silver was being removed from dimes and quarters, and the government was desperate to stop people from hoarding coins. So in 1967, to discourage collectors, the mint decided to do something radical. They removed mint marks entirely. For the first time in modern history, no one could tell which mint a coin came from. Whether it was Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, every penny struck that year bore the same simple date, 1967, and nothing more. That anonymity added an air of mystery that still captivates collectors to this day. Inside those mints, machines never slept. The pressure was immense to produce billions of coins to keep up with the booming U.S. economy. Technicians constantly adjusted dies, replaced worn parts, and tested metals to maintain consistency. But perfection in a mass production environment is almost impossible. A single misaligned die, a tiny speck of debris, a slight difference in temperature could create a minting error, and every error meant a potential future treasure. The workers at the time probably didn't realize that some of the coins rolling off their machines would one day be among the most valuable in the world. Imagine one of those workers, late at night, pulling a small tray of freshly minted cents from the press. The coins are warm to the touch, shimmering under fluorescent lights. He inspects a few, noticing one that looks a little odd, maybe a slightly thicker rim, or a faint doubling on the date. He tosses it aside, assuming it's just a minor flaw. That same coin, decades later, might end up in a collector's vault worth millions. That's how destiny hides in plain sight, in the smallest imperfections of a 1967 penny. Now let's explore the artistry behind the coin. Victor David Brenner's portrait of Lincoln was more than just an image. It was an emotional symbol of honor and endurance. When Brenner first designed it in 1909, he wanted Lincoln's gaze to look strong yet compassionate, capturing both strength and humanity. Over time, that portrait became a silent witness to America's journey, through wars, prosperity, and change. And by 1967, it had already become part of the nation's collective identity. When people saw Lincoln's face on that penny, they saw honesty, resilience, and leadership. Flip the coin, and Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial design reveals another layer of symbolism. Hidden within its columns is the tiny statue of Lincoln, almost invisible to the naked eye but perfectly formed under magnification. That detail is what makes the reverse so beautiful, a monument within a monument. It's like the coin carries both the man and the memorial that honors him, bound together in eternal metal. The motto E pluribus unum, out of many, one, engraved above the memorial is more than just Latin. It's a philosophy. It reminds collectors that every penny, every person, every piece of history contributes to something larger. But what most people don't realize is that during the 1960s, the minting process was in transition. The U.S. Mint was experimenting with different alloys, improving machinery, and adjusting strike pressures to achieve better efficiency. In the chaos of innovation, errors were inevitable. Some coins were struck with overpolished dies that removed parts of the design. Others were understruck, leaving ghostly images and faint lettering. These variations are what collectors now call varieties, and some of them are extremely valuable. One of the most exciting discoveries from this period is the 1967 penny with a die clash error, where the obverse and reverse dies collided without a planchet between them, leaving faint outlines of the Lincoln Memorial imprinted behind Lincoln's head. To a casual observer it might look like damage, but to collectors, it's a miracle, a glimpse into the minting process frozen in time. Then, there's the human factor. 1967 was the peak of industrial minting, but it still relied on skilled hands and sharp eyes. Every coin that left the press was inspected, but humans make mistakes. Maybe an exhausted worker missed a flawed batch after a long shift. Maybe a supervisor rushed production to meet quotas. Every missed flaw became a hidden gem for future treasure hunters. That's the irony. The imperfections of yesterday became the priceless rarities of today. Now let's move to something that fascinates everyone, the global comparison. How does the 1967 penny stand among the world's most valuable coins? Consider the 1933 Double Eagle, the 1913 Liberty Nickel, and the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar, all legends in their own right. But those coins were minted in extremely small numbers. The 1967 penny, on the other hand, was born in abundance, yet managed to create legends through accidents and anomalies. That contrast makes it extraordinary. It's not rare because of intentional limitation. It's rare because of cosmic coincidence, the right mistake at the right moment. The global coin market loves stories like this. Investors from Asia, Europe, and the Middle East have all entered the American coin market searching for the next big discovery. When the news of a 1967 penny selling for an unbelievable price spread, it created a new wave of international attention. Suddenly, a coin that people once ignored became a worldwide symbol of hidden wealth. The demand multiplied overnight, and prices of even regular 1967 cents in mint condition began to climb. That's the magic of hype and hope combined. But beyond hype, there's genuine historical value. The 1967 penny represents a turning point, the end of silver coinage, the rise of modern minting, and the perseverance of the smallest denomination in a time of change. It's not just a collectible, it's a marker of transformation. Now think about the emotional side of it. Every collector, no matter how experienced, still feels a childlike thrill when holding a rare coin. It's the same feeling you get when you discover something nobody else noticed. That emotional connection between humans and metal is ancient. It's the reason kings minted coins with their faces, the reason civilizations used them to record their triumphs. The 1967 penny, though humble, carries that same emotional weight. Imagine this as your closing visual in the YouTube video. A slow-motion shot of a 1967 penny spinning on a table, catching light as it turns. The narrator's voice drops softer, more reflective. "This," he says, "is more than a coin. It's a whisper from history, a symbol of patience, and a reminder that even the smallest things can hold unimaginable value." The coin finally stops, Lincoln's face staring upward, as the screen fades to black. That's the emotional power you want your viewers to feel: awe, curiosity, and inspiration all at once. But before we close, there's one more layer: the future. The world of coin collecting is changing fast. Digital markets, online auctions, and even blockchain technology are reshaping how people trade and verify rare items. Some experts believe that one day, coins like the 1967 penny will be tokenized, meaning their ownership could be digitally recorded, allowing collectors around the world to invest in fractions of ultra-rare coins. Imagine a world where you could own a share of the $187 million penny, just like owning stock in a company. It sounds futuristic, but that's where technology is leading the numismatic world. And that's what makes the 1967 penny timeless. It bridges the past and the future, born from industrial machinery and human craftsmanship, now living on in digital screens and online communities. It's a coin that refuses to fade, a legend that grows stronger with every retelling. When people ask, "Why is this coin worth so much?" the real answer is simple: because it captures everything we value: history, rarity, art, and hope. It's a story of chance and destiny, of mistakes turning into miracles. It's proof that sometimes the smallest objects carry the biggest dreams. So, whether you're a collector, an investor, or just someone curious about the mysteries of the past, remember this: the 1967 penny is not just a piece of copper. It's a symbol of how beauty can hide in ordinary things. It's the reminder that treasure is never far away. It's just waiting for someone to notice it. And maybe the next person to find that legendary 1967 cent worth millions could be you. Now, as we enter the final part of this incredible story, let's take a deep breath and look back at what makes this tiny 1967 1-cent coin so powerful, so legendary, and so unbelievably valuable. We've explored its history, its design, its minting secrets, and the global fascination that surrounds it. But the real magic lies in how a simple copper coin became a symbol of hope, wealth, and destiny. This is not just about money anymore. It's about how something so small could capture the imagination of millions. In 1967, no one would have believed that a single penny, worth just 1 cent, could one day be valued at hundreds of millions of dollars. Back then, it was pocket change, lying forgotten in drawers, passing from hand to hand in grocery stores, vending machines, and gas stations. Kids dropped it into piggy banks, parents tossed it into jars, and shopkeepers rolled thousands of them into paper tubes. Nobody saw its future. Nobody predicted its fate. Yet today, half a century later, this same coin has become a global sensation, a piece of metal that tells a human story of chance, perseverance, and timing. Let's talk about why the value skyrocketed. The first major reason is rarity, but not in the traditional sense. The 1967 penny is not rare by quantity, it's rare by condition and error. Only a handful of coins have survived in pristine, untouched mint state condition, free from scratches, oxidation, or handling marks. And even fewer contain unique die variations, doubling errors, or off-center strikes. Those specific features are what transform a 1-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. The coin market is built on these microscopic details. One tiny line, one faint doubling, one subtle shift can add unimaginable value. Collectors live for those details. They spend hours under magnifying glasses, comparing images, studying die markers, and reading mint reports. For them, every discovery feels like uncovering buried treasure. And when that discovery goes viral, when news breaks that a certain 1967 penny is sold at auction for $187 million, the entire numismatic world lights up like wildfire. The internet fills with speculation, coin forums explode with discussions, and suddenly, every collector in the world starts checking their old coins again, hoping to find their own miracle cent. That's the second reason this coin became legendary: the story itself. Every coin has a tale, but the 1967 cent carries one that feels mythical. It connects everyday people to the extraordinary. Someone out there might be sitting on a fortune without even realizing it. That's the dream, that hidden potential sitting quietly inside a jar of old change. It's the same excitement that drives treasure hunters, investors, and historians alike. People aren't just buying metal, they're buying a piece of magic, a slice of history that could have been forgotten but refused to disappear. Now let's step into the modern market. In today's coin world, grading is everything. A coin's worth is measured by its condition, and that's determined by professional grading services like PCGS and NGC. A 1967 penny graded as MS68 or higher, meaning nearly perfect, with full luster and no marks, can command astronomical prices. Some of these coins are locked away in vaults, owned by private collectors who understand their power. Others are traded quietly between elite investors and museums. When one surfaces for sale, it becomes a global event. News outlets cover it, auction houses fill with bids, and the value climbs minute by minute. That's how a humble 1-cent coin turned into a $1 million headline. And let's not forget the emotional pull. The Lincoln penny isn't just any coin. It's the longest-running design in U.S. history, still in circulation more than a century after its debut in 1909. It carries the legacy of Abraham Lincoln, a symbol of honesty, integrity, and perseverance. Every time you hold a Lincoln penny, you hold a reminder of a leader who rose from humble beginnings to change the world. That symbolism gives emotional depth to every collector's story. For many, owning a 1967 penny feels like owning a piece of that legacy, a physical connection to America's heart and history. Now imagine this: an old man sitting at his kitchen table, sorting through a jar of pennies collected over decades. He's retired, modest, not expecting anything special. As he looks through the coins, something catches his eye: a 1967 penny with an unusual shine. He examines it, feels its weight, and decides to get it appraised. Weeks later, he receives a call. The coin he thought was worth 1 cent is valued at over $100 million. That moment, that disbelief, that life-changing twist, that's what this story is about. That's why people fall in love with coins. It's not just metal, it's possibility. Experts have also pointed out how unique the coin's composition is. Although the standard 1967 penny was 95% copper and 5% zinc, some rare specimens have been found with slightly altered metal compositions, the result of experimental planchets or minting transitions. These anomalies are almost undetectable without advanced testing, but when verified, they can send values skyrocketing. Collectors call them composition errors, and they're among the most coveted varieties in numismatic history. That's part of why one example fetched that unbelievable $187 million figure at a private auction, a combination of rarity, condition, composition, and story. The coin's visual appeal also matters. The natural copper tone of the 1967 cent deepens beautifully with age, turning into shades of reddish-brown or deep chocolate depending on how it was stored. Coins preserved in sealed conditions retain their fiery red luster, which collectors describe as bull red brilliance. That color can make all the difference. A red coin can be worth 10 times more than a brown one. So when a 1967 penny shows up in mint-red perfection, it's like spotting a gem in a sea of pebbles. Now let's zoom out and see the bigger picture. The coin market isn't just about collectors anymore. It's about investors too. Over the last 2 decades, rare coins have become a legitimate asset class. Wealthy investors diversify their portfolios with physical collectibles, gold coins, ancient currency, and rare U.S. issues like the 1967 cent. Why? Because coins combine tangible beauty with historical security. They don't just vanish in market crashes, they hold their legacy. The 1967 penny, in this sense, has become a symbol of the ultimate underdog investment, something that started at 1 cent and defied all odds to reach millions. But there's something deeper than profit here. Every coin tells a human story, the story of design, craft, and meaning. The engravers who shaped Lincoln's face, the machinists who pressed the metal, the collectors who preserved it, and the dreamers who found it, all of them form part of this ongoing legend. That's the true value: connection across generations. Imagine ending your YouTube video with this message, a slow fade into black and white, as the narrator says in a calm, powerful tone. If one penny can hold such history, imagine what stories lie hidden in your own hands. Sometimes, the smallest things hold the biggest worlds inside them. That's how you leave your audience thinking, inspired, and eager to search their own pockets. And speaking of searching, let's talk about what to look for. If your viewers want to find their own valuable 1967 penny, they should check a few key things. First, look at the color and shine. A bright red tone means high value. Second, inspect the date carefully. Any doubling on the numbers or letters like Liberty or In God We Trust can indicate a mint error. Third, weigh the coin. It should be around 3.11 grams, but anything lighter or heavier might mean it's struck on the wrong planchet. Fourth, check the edges and design clarity, sharp details. And nowhere means a higher grade. And finally, consider professional grading. A coin sealed and certified by PCGS or NGC carries official market credibility and can attract premium buyers. Every time someone finds a 1967 penny that fits these signs, the hunt reignites. People start sharing photos online, forums buzz with excitement, and more coins get discovered. It's like a treasure map that keeps growing, with new discoveries being made every year. That's why this story never dies. It keeps expanding with every collector's dream. In the collector's world, they say coins are silent storytellers. They outlive wars, revolutions, and generations, carrying with them the fingerprints of history. The 1967 1-cent coin has become one of those storytellers, a small piece of copper that speaks louder than gold. And maybe, just maybe, it's destiny that one of those coins survived long enough to remind us that value isn't always about size or power. Sometimes it's about endurance, patience, and luck. As your video reaches its final moments, let the music rise. Something soft, emotional, and timeless. The visuals fade through shots of Lincoln's profile, the glowing memorial, and the spinning coin landing flat on a wooden surface. The camera zooms in until the screen is filled with a single word engraved above Lincoln's head: Liberty. The voiceover ends with a final line that echoes beyond the screen. Every coin has two sides, but the 1967 penny has one story, and it's worth $187 million. Then silence. A moment of awe. The credits roll. That's how legends are made, not in royal vaults or golden crowns, but in the smallest, humblest pieces of our history that refuse to fade. The 1967 penny stands as proof that fortune hides in ordinary things, waiting for eyes that can see beyond the obvious. And for every viewer, that message becomes more than just information. It becomes a feeling, a spark, a reason to believe that maybe the next great discovery is already in their pocket. So, the next time you find a 1967 penny, don't just see a coin. See a story. See time, history, mystery, and luck, all pressed into one shining circle of copper. Because this, my friend, is not just a cent. It's a legend that turned one penny into a fortune worth $187 million. As the story of the 1967 1-cent coin draws to its close, one truth shines brighter than copper under light. Legends are born not only from facts, but from fascination. The talk of a single 1967 penny being worth $187 million is part of that fascination, a rumor that grew from a collector's dream and the internet's wildfire imagination. No such confirmed auction has ever taken place, yet the number itself became a symbol of what everyone secretly hopes for, that somewhere in the everyday, a miracle is hiding. In reality, most 1967 Lincoln cents remain common. They were minted by the hundreds of millions, and you can still find them in circulation today. A circulated example may be worth only its face value. But when that same coin appears in flawless condition, bright red, untouched, preserved since the day it left the press, its worth rises sharply. Certified mint state examples graded MS65 or MS-66 often bring a few dollars, sometimes more. The highest graded pieces, MS-67 or MS-68, can reach hundreds or even thousands at major auctions. That is the genuine, documented market, not fantasy, but still a remarkable climb for something that began as a single-cent. Collectors cherish these coins because they capture a turning point in American history. 1967 was a year of transition. Mint marks were temporarily removed, silver disappeared from regular coinage, and the U.S. Mint was modernizing faster than ever. The Lincoln design, already over half a century old, stood as a quiet constant through all that change. Every well-preserved penny from that year carries with it the echo of those times. The clatter of mint presses, the optimism of a nation, the art of Brenner and Gasparo immortalized in copper. If your viewers are searching for their own treasures, tell them this. Start by learning. Study the difference between a normal strike and an error strike. Learn to read mint luster, to weigh coins precisely, to spot the smallest doubling in a date or a letter. Every serious collector began by noticing one small detail that everyone else ignored. That curiosity is what turns a hobby into discovery. There are still surprises out there. Every year, new die varieties are documented. Every few months, a previously unknown mint error appears in an online auction. Sometimes it's a double die obverse, sometimes a broad strike, sometimes a coin struck on the wrong metal blank. The thrill never ends because the minting process itself is full of chance. That's why searching pocket change remains one of the simplest adventures anyone can begin, the promise that history might be hiding in your own hands. And if we step back and look beyond the coins themselves, there's a deeper message here. A penny is supposed to be the smallest unit of value, often overlooked, dropped without thought. Yet every great collection, every fortune, every economy begins with 1 cent. That humble beginning mirrors life itself. Small efforts, small details, small acts that build into something enduring. The 1967 penny reminds us that nothing is truly insignificant. Value is a matter of perception, patience, and passion. Picture your video's final scene. A hand places a 1967 penny on an old wooden table. The light glows warm on its surface. The camera moves closer until the entire screen fills with a single word above Lincoln's head: Liberty. The narrator's voice softens. Some say a 1967 penny could be worth millions. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. What's certain is that every coin tells a story of the hands that made it, the eyes that saved it, and the dreams that keep it shining. So before you spend your next penny, take a second look. You might not just be holding a coin, you might be holding history. Music fades. The coin rests still. The screen goes black, leaving only the echo of the narrator's final words. In a world where everything loses value, the real treasure is the story that endures.